Derek Carr was signed by our New Orleans Saints to a 4-year, $150 million deal. And of course, the first reaction is this is way too much money. The Saints have been in cap hell for a couple of seasons now. We know what they're doing now, or what they're going through now, is what happened when they were mortgaging the future with Drew Brees. And unfortunately, once we get into it, you'll see it kind of seems like the Saints are going to be going through the same thing with Derek Carr. Of course, if he is a long-term option, we're going to dig all through the money here. But let's just start from the top for starters. What everybody already knows, really, with Derek Carr and with him going to the New Orleans Saints. Of course, he's a 4-time Pro Bowler. First of all, thank God we didn't trade for him, because I was going to like to see Derek Carr possibly here, but I was like, I can't see us trading, giving up actual assets, whatever the case may actually be. I didn't want to give up trade assets or draft picks when I knew that really already we were limited on those. We were in cap hell, so we needed as much young talent as possible. We couldn't pay these, talented veterans. Derek Carr's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He went to the playoffs twice, but he is winless, unfortunately. He almost had the 5 straight seasons of 4,000 yards. Of course, he got benched last year for Jarrett Stidham, so that kept him out of the 5 straight years, but he does have the 4 straight, and he is only 31. Players have always seemed to like him throughout his career. Of course, with his time with the Raiders, obviously when he was in college as well. He seems to be hyped to be in New Orleans as well. He put the tweet out. It was Tyrann Mathieu, of course, announcing the Who Dat chant. Very simple tweet from Derek Carr, Who Dat. And he has great energy. This guy's a leader. We know he's a family man. He's open about his religion. He's open about certain things that go on in his life. He went through an insane time with that franchise in Las Vegas with, the lawsuit with John Gruden, with the Henry Ruggs incident, with injuries, with no defense. I mean, Derek Carr has been through a lot in his career. We know that already. And that's why when he comes over to the Saints, it's what is he really getting by coming to New Orleans, and what is New Orleans getting out of Derek Carr? We know he can make plenty of throws. He could be better at reading defenses, in my opinion. And we know he can ad-lib a little bit if he needs to, get a little shifty. He did play in a division where there was Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, and he kind of had to pick up on that from them. We know he's been in an MVP conversation as well. But at the end of the day, we know he can be turnover prone, and he hasn't thrown 30 touchdowns, since 2015. That was 8 years ago. I feel like the standard in the NFL now is to throw at least 33 to 35. Last year, Derek Carr threw 24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. The interceptions were tied for the most in his career in a season. But let's get into the pros for the New Orleans Saints. We know that this makes the Saints better at quarterback, because when you're looking at Jameis Winston, whether it was Andy Dalton, a possibly injured Hendon Hooker that does have great upside, yes, but we don't know what he's going to be until he comes back from that injury. Baker Mayfield was in the rumors. Jimmy Garoppolo was in the rumors. And whatever young rookie quarterback that we would have possibly made a haul for. I would have rather, in my opinion, had a top quarterback from this draft for that fresh restart, and we hire a good or better offensive coordinator or head coach once Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael get fired, because I do believe that time is coming. Hate to see how it's played out for Pete, because I thought he messed with Sean Payton really well. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and we know what Dennis Allen has done also. He got fired towards the end of his tenure with the Raiders, and his win-loss record was just not good. That's on paper there for you. So, we know that this makes New Orleans better at the quarterback position. And, as a fan looking in on it, like we had just had 7 wins, no playoffs, right? So, I'm thinking like, man, is it really going to be Andy? Is it really going to be Jameis? Like, is it really going to be Baker? Is it really going to be Jimmy G? And now you bring in Derek Carr. So this does make me a little bit excited, because, hear me out, Vegas does have weapons like a Darren Waller, like a Devontae Adams, like a Hunter Renfrow, like a Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is going to be a free agent. Derek Carr has deep ties to all those guys. So whether it's possibly this season, whether it's at the trade deadline, whether it's on draft night, whether it's in 1 season or 2, I think fans and the city of New Orleans can look forward to one of those players, maybe if not multiple, actually coming over, because they're so tied to Derek Carr as well, and because they want to play next to him. This takes New Orleans, I feel like, from the 7-win season, again, no playoff season that they just had, and it might be, it could have been headed back towards that, to now the best in the division, no question. The Bucs don't have a quarterback. The Falcons just said they're out on Lamar Jackson, and unless the Panthers just strike really big in the draft considering the Saints defense, how they're running the front office, and just the leadership of the team, New Orleans is going to be the best team in the NFC South. And I don't even say that for a homer take. When you look at the Saints schedule, I see 11 to 12 wins on this schedule. I think we'll go 4-2 in the division after this. I think we'll lose to Carolina and Tampa once each, which I know kind of sounds off, but Tampa's got some defense. I'm not just going to say Tampa's a complete wash. Again, I'm not saying we're going to dominate this division, but I do believe we will be the best in the division, and I do believe we will win. Carolina, starting to kind of become that scrappy team in the last few years. We know the defense has come around some. Nothing to really be desired at the head coach or the quarterback position yet, but I don't think the Saints are just going to absolutely sweep the NFC South. Honestly, I could see us sneaking into a divisional round or further with this defense. We know the defense kind of slacked off some in the year. I didn't really care for it until it had come around towards the back end of the year, and it honestly fared well. You look, the Saints play, of course, the NFC South opponents, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Bucks. Then they play at home the Lions, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Bears, and the Giants. I see us beating all of those teams outside of the Jaguars. I personally do. I know some people might put up a fight for the Giants. Some people might put up a fight for the for the Lions. I believe the Saints could beat all those teams. Now we go look at the away teams. Of course, all the division teams again: Falcons, Panthers, Bucks. Then you have Colts. I think that's a win. Vikings. We could probably lose that one. The Vikings looked pretty solid last year. I think they're going to hold up for the most part. I don't. We have the Rams as well. I think we can beat them. Packers. I think that'll be a hit or miss. It just depends. Does Aaron Rodgers come back? Who do they put in his place? Then you've also got the Texans, and you've also got the Patriots as well. I think those are both wins. So again, I'm believing 11 to 12 wins for this New Orleans Saints team here. Again, we're sticking to the pros. Derek Carr gets a very well-run franchise, stability, great or elite defense, depending on who you asked. Derek Carr has never had a defense finish above 14th overall in yards or even 20th overall in his 9-year career with the Las Vegas Raiders, what used to be the Oakland Raiders. Dude went through 5 head coaches and 2 interns in his time in Vegas, Oregon, in Oakland. The Saints had Sean Payton for 15 years and were a contender for 10 of those years. And the Saints defense, especially over the last 3 years, which is probably the best it's been in franchise history, has been top 9 in points and top 7 in yards the last 3 years in a row. So he comes over and he gets stability. He comes over and he's getting a defense. We know the Saints are a well-run franchise. Obviously, they can draft well. It feels kind of tough to say as a well-run franchise because we know that they've been in cap hell, which is, again, is going to be in the cons as we get next and unfold into this deal with Derek Carr here. But, yeah, I mean, all right. So let's keep moving. Let's keep moving because this is a lot to process. This is a ton to process. So let's get into the cons here for Derek Carr's deal. Again, we know New Orleans is well ran. Well, excuse me. Let's back up to the pros. Lost my train of thought there for a second. It's just so much going on with this topic, so much to process, so much happening. Okay. So we know Derek Carr. He's going to get a Chris Olave. He's going to get an Alvin Kamara. He's going to get a good O-line. Good, not great O-line. He's going to get that defense as well. Now let's talk about the cons, either for Derek Carr or for the Saints. Either way, the bad parts of the deal. Want to make sure I'm not leaving out on the chat. I'd scream if we traded. So would I, Darby, if that would have happened. Okay, let's look at the cons for this Derek Carr deal. This here, I feel like, is the position that the Saints were realistically in. Overpaying for a quarterback, no matter who would have came here when they wanted or needed the money, no matter who would have came here, they would have wanted the money or they would have needed the money. And I said that there were no worthy quarterbacks on the market in our price range. We overpaid for Derek Carr, plain and simple. We're going to get into some more of those numbers again. He's a better than middle of the pack quarterback, but he's just outside the top 10. I've seen people have him as low as maybe 17th. I've seen him as high as in the top 7 or top 8. I'd probably stick him 11th to 14th, realistically, with Derek Carr. Again, he can make a lot of throws. He can be shifty. I don't think he's the best at reading defenses. I don't personally think he could will you to a Super Bowl at the end of the day. I really don't. And the Saints' goal isn't to just make the playoffs or win the division. We're 2 seasons removed from the most wins in a 4-year span with no Super Bowl appearances. We know how to get into the playoffs and win the division. We've done that. And I know the fans want to see the Saints win the Super Bowl again. Again, we are just 2 seasons removed from the most wins in a 4-year span with no Super Bowl appearances. It was an NFL record. I don't see Derek Carr winning us another Super Bowl in his time here. I don't. I get it. Again, it seems like a lot of positives for him, and I'm not saying it's loaded with negatives, but as far as getting to another Super Bowl, I do not see that happening with Derek Carr. Let's take a look at his last season. He finished with a little over 3,500 yards, third lowest in his career, 24 touchdowns, 14 picks. Again, the interceptions were tied for the most in his career in a single season. Just under 61% completion, which is well below the NFL average and standard. You need to be completing at least 65% of your passes. If someone's nice, they might say 63. For me, 65% of your passes got to be completed. That was the lowest in his career, 60.8, where his completion percentage was last year. An 86.3 passer rating, which was also the lowest in his career. And this was after getting Devontae Adams, who is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL at the time, playing alongside Aaron Rodgers, racking up touchdowns, best route runner in the league. Again, more than likely the best wide receiver at the time when he came over. And I even said it's his former teammate, so there was more continuity there. You know, now it's kind of now that's kind of a negative for Derek Carr because he didn't use that to his advantage. But I was hyping it up. I said this is going to be the best quarterback and wide receiver duo in the league, and it wasn't. And Derek Carr, and I'm not trashing Derek Carr, but in the context of the Saints bringing him over and for this contract, this is what they just signed. The Saints just gave a 31-year-old declining quarterback $150 million, whose team who drafted him and supported him for almost 10 years, put him through all those head coaches, had all of those rallies around him. Raiders fans still love Derek Carr. They absolutely loved him while he was there. And now you have him with the New Orleans Saints. The team that drafted him and bought in on him just cut him. It's perspective. The team that nurtured him, believed in him, moved forward with him from the draft, tried to build around him, just cut him one season after signing the best wide receiver in the NFL. So, you know, I just kind of wonder what the Saints are doing and thinking, seeing as how right now, you know, and even then, we couldn't even afford to extend a Trey Hendrickson, a Marcus Williams, keep a Jared Cook. We've been in cap hell for the last few seasons since we mortgaged the franchise when Drew was well on his way out. And we, you know, I don't blame them. We were rallying around Drew, a legend. We wanted to win the second Super Bowl. The playoff mishaps were absolutely insane. And we hated to see that, right? But at the end of the day, I will give them credit because they did just restructure Ryan Ramczyk, Tyrann Mathieu, Eric McCoy, Marcus May, and Will Lutz to clear $31.4 million in cap space, which absolutely helps.